finished. There. I'll double check it. Are we on? We are on. I'm just checking it there.
Well, thank you for that. Welcome and hello. I'll move this back. You can see better what's happening. That's today's subject. Some balloons. So this should be a fun little blast. I have an old canvas which I'm going to go over. So I know there is this. Oh, I've got stuff on me already. Right. Calm myself down. Ugh. There it is. Right. Kitchen towel. Yeah, there's this idea that you have to sort of blank out. The number of times I've been doing a lesson and someone's got an old canvas and they say at the beginning of the lesson they get a load of white paint and they put it over the top and you go, well, now that's just covered in white oil paint, so now you can't do anything. So unless that was all you planned on doing this session, sort of, you've either got to do that 2 weeks beforehand or or not at all. Right. Yes, what was I going to say? Yeah, let's go the other way. So I'm going to be ignoring the previous drawing and doing a new bit of drawing over the top. Luckily, it's just in shape, so I'm going to introduce a bit of colour at the beginning. There's conventions to what you do at what stage, but this has already got a ground on it. This surface is sealed, so I may as well just mix my three colours. I'm going to, there's some cadmium red there. There is some of this yellow, which has got quite a lot of green content, but not everywhere, but it is a little bit lemony. So I'll put the tiniest amount of this sort of slightly violety blue in there and see what that does. Maybe a tiny little bit of iridium just to keep it clean, and a bit of white. There, that's my particular hue, my particular flavour of yellow. That might be a bit too green, I'm not sure. That'll do for starters. No, it is a bit much. A bit more cadmium back in there. And this sort of, do you call it a teal? Is that what? I would call it sort of a turquoise. Again, it's a sort of a greeny blue, very clean greeny blue. From a hue perspective, that's what's going on there. So to do that, I'll get some mixing white. I'll probably put that down over here actually. Put some viridian in it, see what that does. Titanium white, and that's a little bit bluer, only a little bit. Yeah, that'll do for that. And I'll do some thin versions of these colours and just put some shapes in. I'm also going to need a shadow colour, that background, which will be neutral, but we'll have these colours added to it as the light travels through. So, oh, it's got lumps in it. There's some more umber, ultramarine. Keep it on the warm side. Yeah, mixing white in that. Pretty good. And a lighter version of the other side. A bit too bright, if anything. So that's my basic colours, and I'm kind of just going to do a new bit of blocking in over the top. I'm not going to worry about careful drawing or tonal values, because I can't do that with the first layer. So normally the first layer, especially with a blank canvas, I might use a bit of inky paint and set out where the lights and the darks are and get some comparisons going on, so I could find my bearings with that. So now I'm kind of seeing it now. There, can scrub that out very quickly. Let's get some of those big
Josie
shapes.
says, hi both, are the balloons from a celebration?
No, they were on offer in Sainsbury's, and I thought, I like balloons, so I bought them because I like balloons, which is, I know that sounds weird now. Yeah, someone had a party or something.
Yeah.
No, just, it's fun because I've got quite a few boxes of them, and so if someone comes around to visit, it's fun to say, do you like some balloons before you go? Like a goodie bag to take away with you. And no one really quite knows what to make of that, which I enjoy. It's the sort of thing I like, isn't it? Confusing people. Okay, a bit of scrubbing in. It's getting rid of what's already there. I'm still using a little bit of thinners just to make the paint spread a bit.
We've also got Ian Wiley, who says, hi James, the
hi,
picture
Ian.
appears to be upside down. Ian.
Yes, the picture is upside down, but it's been gone over. So
why did you choose that particular picture to go over the top of?
because it was rubbish. That's the entirety of my my thinking on that one. I was unhappy with it. It hadn't worked. I'd abandoned it. I'm never going to go back to it. If I was going to paint that again, I'd start again at the beginning. I'm
The right way up as well.
Yeah, so turning it upside down helps me ignore what's already there to a certain extent.
What's the most amount of times you've gone over a painting?
I don't tend to go over them. It's not a habit I have, simply because I like to work up a painting from the beginning, and then if it's rubbish, I just sort of abandon it. If it's good, I'll finish it. And if I want to start a new painting, I'd get a new canvas, and every now and again, I get a load of old paintings that I wasn't happy with that have lingered around, languished in the studio for a while, and re-prime them But once you've put oil paint on a surface, you've got to use something different to prime them up. So you can't use an acrylic-based primer over the top of oil paint because it will just peel off. Okay, we're seeing some shapes going in now. Like I said, I'm just being really scrubby. This will mix in with what's coming up on top, but there's hardly any paint there. So now that's in. Well, I've got dark paint on the tiny little corner of the brush into the thinners just to make it spread a bit further. Just get enough to.
It's going to be really quick one, assuming, isn't it? Three circles, 3 different colours, background, done.
Yeah.
Let's go home.
Oh, would that it were that easy?
Yeah.
Well, essentially, I mean, it could be in the hands of a better artist. I'm sure they just pick exactly the right colours, drop them down, it'd look great. There you go, okay, that's me done. I like that bit of yellow at the bottom of that shadow there. So the light does travel through and a small amount of the colour travels into the background. So that's going to be a fun one to try and thin down. There's also different amounts of sort of chroma and stuff. So
for the sake of Luddites like me,
yeah.
Can you do the explanation of chroma, hue?
Yes. Well, that's a good one. Yes. So hue is its angle on the colour wheel. So as you go around the colour wheel, you'd go through. That's what we learned at primary school, really. You know, you've got 3 primary colours. So if you pick a primary colour, it's got 2 neighbouring primary colours, which are the other 2 primary colours. And on the way to either of those, it goes through the secondary colours, and everything else is brown. It's a simple way of thinking about it. Not entirely accurate, but not a bad start. So this, for example, is in between green and blue. People frequently have arguments about whether a colour is green or blue, and actually they're both right, and it's not worth arguing about. But there's a so there's a place, if you were mixing this colour, there's a place where it's too blue and there's a place where it's too green, and you move to and fro, and somewhere you're at the right hue angle, and that's what hue is your position on the colour wheel. But most colours that you'll ever mix or even see are actually tertiary colours. They've got a bit of all the primaries in them. Yeah, let's pop a bit of white in that just for the hell of it. And that's where chroma comes in. So if something's just a primary or secondary colour, it will generally be at its highest chroma. So it depends on what pigments you've got in practical terms, but in terms of how you think about colour, when you think about red, you're thinking about maximum fire engine red. But you take that fire engine, you park it in the shade, and it's not as bright red anymore. So then how do you define that? I'm doing too many edges now. Probably could do with getting another brush on the go for this. Another large brush. And that's where chroma comes in. So if you take a complementary colour, complement, as in completing, which is the opposite side of the colour wheel, which is, if you want to simplify the way you think about it, the other 2 primary colours mixed together. If you think, or unless you, So for example, I've got yellow here. So what are the other 2 primary colours other than yellow? Come on, Graham. I'll get you to think through it.
I'm terrible and useless at this sort of stuff.
You know your primary colours, right?
Green.
No, not a primary colour.
Yeah. See,
Oh,
this is
dear.
why I'm here.
I forget about this stuff. No. If you don't do this all the time, why on earth would you know?
No.
It's not important. You can live your life in a perfectly satisfactory way without knowing any of this stuff. So, yeah. So, can you mix green?
Yes.
And what would you use to mix green?
Yellow.
Right, and
Blue.
okay, that would mix the green.
So yellow, blue.
So if you can mix it, it's not a primary colour. Hence the primary. So it's not not one of the first colours you'd have. So yellow and blue are two of them. There's another one. What's it called? Really popular.
Red.
That's the one. So yeah, and that's your primary colours. And you can mix any hue with three primary colours. The brighter and more intense you want that to be, the more sometimes called saturation as well, another word that gets used for it, the higher chroma it is. So cadmium red straight out the tube, really high chroma. And I've added a bit of white to that. Put a bit of yellow in it too. Yeah, so that's really high chroma red going in over here. And you can see looking at the I don't know. Can we try adjusting that webcam so that
Which one?
the one with the subject?
I've tried doing that and it's not playing ball today.
I wonder if I move this across, if that helps. Yeah, you can see on the right of the red balloon is where it's reddest. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's most red. Same with the green. That green on the right is more intense than the green on the left where it's in light. So, have I got that right? That looks pretty good. Yeah. And this bit of thinness, tiny bit. Anyway, so let's. There you go. So for doing these shapes, I'm thinking of tangents and stuff like that. Although it's a curved line, there's a place where it's horizontal, there's a place where it's vertical. And if I can see where they are, I can let the shape describe itself to me and hopefully draw it with some accuracy. Something like that. There you go, that was quick. So there's a job there. And that blue's going to go into here. But it's, yeah, very odd. The kind of a pinker colour. So here in the shadow, it's more pink. It's actually, it almost appears lighter in one place, but it's also a lower chroma, it's not as bright. There we go. That's a bit of fun, isn't it? Got this violet left over. Pop a bit of that into here. So now I'm kind of mixing on the surface a bit now because I've already got a layer of paint on and that paint isn't sinking into what's underneath. That will go in under here and then it's going to change. There we go. It's going to change to a green beneath it. I'm not afraid of losing these edges. Oh, that was my green brush. So let's give that a go. Let's chuck some of that green in here. Is that going to be too much? Again, same thing again. I'm going to have to make that paler and greyer. There's this little family of colours developing already. That's going to go in there. It's going to gradually fade out as it mixes with what's beyond. Especially around here. Yeah, and it'll get browner as it goes. And there's this yellow that comes in. There's places where there's more shadow. Under there. Maybe a little bit around here. You start to see those other colours sort of creeping out. Bit by bit. We'll wander over. Especially around here. Great. And then same kind of thing. Get some of this light, some of this grey. Put a bit of that yellow in it, not loads. And that's going to be the yellow as it finds its way into the shadow. It's going to be around here. A lot around there. It's all quite scrubby. I'm not laying on really thick paint at this point, but like I said, I've already got a ground on. It gets a bit browner around here. A bit more colour in. Where else? Oh, it sort of gets a bit creamier and almost a bit pinker down here. A lot of light travelling through it there. A few more reds and things in it. That's great. Pop a few of those in there. And it gets down to here. A lot more yellow into this. Yeah, so that's some of the shadow colours turning up there. What else am I seeing? Let me go back to my lights. Use a bit of yellow ochre to make an orange. I will add into my light mix judiciously. It's not the yellower version here.
There's potentially another stupid question to ask.
I'd only got as far as hue, hadn't I, and chroma.
Mm.
Tone is the other one, which they say tone does all the work and colour gets the glory. So you want to have your tones right, your lights and darks are really important. Sorry, carry on.
Buying paint, can you only buy primary colours and black and white?
No, you get all different colours of pigment, but they all fit into that system because that's how our eyes work. Does that make sense? Well, you can buy whatever colour paint you want, but it doesn't change the biology of your eye. So if you buy green paint, you could mix that colour by getting a certain amount of yellow and a certain amount of blue or whatever it might be, and mixing it in the right proportions. The big thing, so if you look at the palette, I don't know how well you can see on here, but there's a very intense yellow, there's a very intense red. I could mix this hue with this yellow and this red, but it wouldn't be as bright. It wouldn't be as high a chroma. If I can show you. It's quite an interesting thing to see. There's a blob of cadmium red right there, and it's some distance. It's very close to the red, but it's leaning towards the yellow. Right? Now, if I take a colour like this, which is alizarin, you can see it's much cooler, it's much closer to the blue. I'll put a tiny bit of white in it just so you can really see the colour. And similarly with cadmium yellow, it's very warm, very intense, very bright yellow there. Yellow ochre, which is an earth colour, so it's made out of ground up rock or soil or whatever. Put some of that here. It's not as bright and intense. So if I got some of this alizarin here, it's not as orange as this is, so I can add more of this yellow and it will steer it towards the orange. Can you see that? And now they're about the same hue, as in they're about the same distance between yellow and red. But this is much, much more intense. This has a much higher chroma. So when people say I tend to work in muted colours, which is true, I like to just save a space for the brightest bit. I don't like to go too far with it too soon. Right. Where was I? Oh yeah. So I'm gradually building up this surface here. I'm going to have to mix a lot more paint. This brighter yellower one over here, that's going to go on there. That's going to get thicker. I'm not going to do it all now because there is room later on for refining the shapes a bit more and making this paint even thicker. And so I pretty much used that up now, but got an idea of where it goes. Yeah, talking about the tangents, do a bit more careful drawing there. And here. And it fades out. So there's a lot happening. So there's reflecting colour. There's light reflecting from this balloon here, which is going to cool this area of light down a bit. There's light reflecting from here. There's light reflecting from this red balloon up here. So that's going to make that a bit more pink up there. It's interesting. So it's quite fun to sort of push and pull these colours. There's other bits where it, yeah, so it definitely warms up a bit over here. And up there a bit as well. But it's a fun little composition, isn't it, already? And I can already see these relationships going on. So there's a few things I could do. I could, actually, yeah, let's go with the red balloon first then. I've got a violet that I mixed before, so I'm going to make a little neighbour colour here. Cadmium red, put a bit of this violet in it, and that will darken it. I don't know if that will be enough. There's a few darker shapes, and they change in temperature as they go as well. Okay, they become a bit more red, a bit more intense in a few places around here. All I'm seeing is reflections now. And there's lots of reflections. That's quite interesting. I'll put a few of those deeper ones in here, and then it gets a lot more red just next door. I'll put a bit of that yellow in it. I've got the most intense red over here. And the others have to relate to that. So yeah, you just piece some of these shapes together. That's making me see other darker shapes in there. Means I can go even further with this violet. Almost a bit further than that. There you are. Go back into a deeper red just next to it. Down here. The reflections are quite fun. Right, and I've got this paler, more orangey red just next door. It's going to go in there. The lighter I make it, the more yellow I have to make it as well. There we go, that works. Make that even paler and yellower here. These little reflection bits. Back to that orange colour just underneath. So I'm piecing together bit by bit the different parts that make up the shapes that make this balloon. There's a really, I've got a bluish colour here, and make a really much darker one. Hey! I'm a bit clumsy. Yeah, so I can refine some of these edges later on. Yeah, where else? Do for that. And then what's really interesting is this reflection light colour. Again, because it gets lighter. Like that. Let's see if I can put that on as one stroke pretty much. There's a brighter bit over here. Over here. Definitely a reflected brighter bit over here. Then dips in and fades out a little bit. See these little marks and what have you. Little corners on there. Oh, that's the window behind me, I think. Hard to tell. There is a reflection of the other balloon just there. And the lamp itself, which goes about here. There'll be a bright light to go in the middle of that. Oh, before I forget, really bright orange.
Sarah Phillips has just messaged, love the balloons.
Oh, hey Sarah. Yeah, that's the sort of the same light from the other side. Yeah, extra oranginess to go around that back edge. Is that too much? No, I think that'll be okay. Oh, I'm going to step back for a second and have a look at that. Yeah, there's some ballooniness going on in that.
On a scale of 1 to ballooniness.
I might soften some of the edges of this. You can put some of that around there as well. Just and borrow the slightest bit. So now I am entering true artist territory, and I'm mixing a greeny red, which doesn't make any sense, but because I'm mixing green and red together and I can see what happens to me, I'm experiencing greeny red, which is, well, it's an interesting thing to get to experience. A bit of light underneath. I don't overdo that too much. Block of a reflection there. And there. Yes, all the balloony fun. Same here. I'll do it. Yeah, I could go further with this, to be honest. Maybe it's okay. Yeah, should probably stop there. And yeah, I guess I'll do the same with the other two. Oh, it's funny how quickly that seems to appear, isn't it? Okay. Some of that brightness there.
I think it's quite interesting looking at that one next to the two balloons that you haven't done any work on yet, because they both seem very matte in
Yeah.
how they are.
And a lot of the time I'd work different parts of an image up sort of together, but because the local colours are so different and separate. Then, yeah, I guess that doesn't get to happen. There we go. Chuck some extra light on there. And because I'm not putting loads of paint on quickly, I can still make my mind up. And there's still room for more paint over the top of this, but you get a sense of that contrast showing through. I'm also really understanding where some more of this green can go into the light here. Especially around there. Yeah. Great. I can clean that brush now. My background brush. All right, just a little moment. Oh yeah, I think this is gonna. I can imagine it now. I think this is going to work. The string is really going to help. I guess my one doubt is will they feel like they're three-dimensional and sticking out from the wall? But I think they will. I think that will work. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, so we've covered hue and chroma. Other than that, yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I mixed this this green earlier. I'm going to take some of that, and I'm going to add just enough white to it to make it really sing out. So there's an interesting thing as well that I think people often forget. It's said about tone. So the lights and darks do all the work. It's rare you can find an image that you can take a black and white photo of and appreciate the image, you know, in black and white. Occasionally you get an image, you take a black and white photo and it's really grey, and you lose a lot of edges and stuff. And that's because it's colour contrast which is separating things out. So quite often happens with landscapes. You know, there might be all sorts of lovely different greens and colours in trees. So what do they call them? The people who go to, is it New England in autumn, and all the trees go all these glorious colours.
Oh yeah. And
they all turn up to take their pictures of trees and
leaf peepers,
whatever they call them anyway. And oh no, that needs some more yellow in it. It's so interesting. So yeah, if they took black and white photos, that would be really rubbish. That's definitely a phenomenon that's arrived with colour photography. The old Kodachrome.
Yeah, there's a whole swathe of people that go across to America to do the following of autumn as it goes across the States.
Yeah. Oh, imagine being that dull. Apologies to anyone who is that dull, by the way.
We can only apologise on your behalf.
I apologise on my own behalf in perpetuity for all the things I ever say ever. Yeah. Does that let me off now? Like buying an indulgence, isn't it? You're familiar with that?
The buying an indulgence.
Yeah. We watched Conclave the other day.
Yeah.
And they mentioned simony,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of it goes along with that kind of thing. It's the idea of selling favours, but there was a time, and when wealthy people could go to the church and go, look, I've been doing all this sinning, and I'd really like to be let off it all rather than like pay forever in hell. Is there anything you can do? And the church at the time came up with a number. And it's funny because it's, as we're probably acutely aware at the moment, it's a system that still exists, except it's not run by the church anymore. But there's still this thing of like, can you afford to be an appalling human being? And if the answer is yes, go ahead. No one's going to stop you. And
That's the American bail system, isn't it?
Well, no, because with bail, you've still got a trial at some point in the future that you're going to have to face up to. Bail presumes that you're going to return at some time and face the consequences of your actions. But if you're really wealthy, the whole thing just goes away. And anyway, I'm not going to get into politics and stuff like that because it's not my business and I don't know what I'm talking about. But there is an interesting relationship. And it's so you could almost like buy an indulgence as a preemptive apology for the thing that you're about to do, which I think is quite funny. I was always rather amused by the idea. Obviously, they don't do it anymore. They'd take a dim view if you tried to go and purchase one of them now. But you know, priests got to live, haven't they? Yes, it does take me back to that idea. Maybe if I apologise profusely ahead of time.
You know, the Conclave film we watched the other evening, my sister said that we should also watch The Two Popes.
Right. Yes, I've heard good things about that. I think it's one. I think I have this slight bias against. In my mum's village, they do a movie-ola night, which is great. They turn the village hall into a cinema, and all these people come out for it, and it's a great sort of social and this, that, and the other. But they're very trapped within what's acceptable to most people, and most people is basically older people who live in a village in Dorset. So there's this whole. Every film seems to have Bill Nye and Maggie Smith in it. Every single one. I think Judi Dench is sort of a bit less active than she was, but and so there's this sort of whole thing. No one could really try something different or new.
A bit like Hugh Grant.
Yeah, I suppose he crops up in a lot of things. But you know, there was. If it was a film with Maggie Smith in it, they were guaranteed to love it. You know, it was. Well, you know, she's a fine actress, or was a fine actress, and is a. You know, a lot of the time we look for who's in a film as a. You know, their reputation is some kind of guarantee as to whether it will be above a certain standard.
Mm.
That's why when Bruce Willis's family started putting him in all that rubbish, it caught a few people out. Well, I think it caught everyone out at least once. You know, he used to be quite selective about what he was in, or at least there was a sort of standard attached to it in terms of the studios, and then suddenly he just started turning up in all this rubbish. I'm really seeing the yellow in this. In the light side of this balloon now. Because there's already some paint on there, I can actually go for it a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to get another brush on the go, and that'll do it. Let's make a few deeper blues over here. Yeah, there we go. That's so interesting. The light side of the balloon, really quite pale. I think I've kind of, talking about chroma. They are, yeah, I've kind of lost it there. It's gone too blue. A bit more viridian. And using the titanium white bleaches everything out, which is kind of what I want here. Ah. There you are. You hungry, Graham?
Hmm?
You hungry?
No.
That was your stomach rumbling, wasn't
Yes, well, yeah, I ate before I came out, so it's digesting away now.
Right, good. The old hyperacusis kicking in. Yeah, it needs to be even paler. The more white I add, the lower the chroma drops, so I sort of I've got this fun kind of balancing act. That's kind of working. But I've got this this slightly redder, oranger light over here. I'm going to use that to create a bit of variety. So this balloon will have the same reflections on this one does, but it's slightly less shiny, and also because of the colour it doesn't give off as much, but it will still have some of those same qualities around the edge here, and that is kind of a lost edge. That I'm acutely aware of where the balloon ends and the background begins, but actually yeah, relatively happy with that. Let's move some of this out a little bit. Fun. Get the old colour shaper out. In here somewhere. Oh, there. There's a spatula, I'll use that. Clear a bit of space. That'll give me some room to put some really bright lights down. Again, we'll go slightly yellower. Oh. I'm seeing all sorts of things now. There's some bright yellow on the underneath. where it's reflecting the yellow balloon beneath, and that's going to help me a bit by defining that shape. Is there anywhere else for that to go? A little bit in here. I'm working it into the paint that's already there. There we are. We'll get one other brush for the highlights. And this I really am just using like a trowel. Mix a little bit of this orange into it. And this little bit. And just paste that on top. There. Use it to brighten the background a little bit. Yay! Okay, other little colours have I got? I've got this little reflection up here. Bit of that. Anything else? No. That'll do it. Still not quite happy about this bit, but I can always come back to it. Now this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to you doing this yellow one.
I'm going to start with the yellow I mixed before. Oh, that was my highlight brush. Oh well, it isn't anymore. No. Too bright. It will mix in on the surface. Yeah, it's going to be okay. So what I don't want to do is start painting lines, so I will resist that. Yeah, there's this orangey colour in here. Works. I'm going to travel around here. Use some of this pale colour underneath. It's going to be especially visible there. Right, and then there's this really pale crisp green which shows up around here. A bit more bulbous. A bit of that green from the other side. Make a clean edge to that. That's good. And here, where else can I see it? See it there in the reflection, but that's too soon. I'm going to keep using this green brush. I'm going to move it over here. Make a browner version of it and see if that works in here. I think it does. And it gets paler. Yeah, not yellow enough. Somewhere in between the two. That kind of carries on into there, and it gets darker, which is sort of what I've already got behind. Right. Okay, let me clean that. And get my palette knife out again. Oh, I'm still holding it. And yeah, I'm going to need some of this space back on the palette. I'll put all that to one side. My warm and cool background colours, but they're kind of on now, so I don't really need any more of those. Put some yellow there. Just brought a bit of green with it. That's okay, because I want that. Okay, is that too much? No, I think that'll be okay. I've got to compare my bright light around the edge of the balloon that goes here with the bright highlight, which is that bit brighter. That'll be okay. Make a slightly yellower one here. Good. And I'm going to want some of this bright yellow. It's a bit warmer. Still not quite that warm. Oh, I'll find my way to that, to do some adjustments as I go. This is why I really want a well-shaped brush to really control this. Yeah, really control this shape when it goes on. And start with this light. I'm not using any thinners. Perhaps I should have done. As I drag that in. I'm going to mix with the yellow on the surface, which I'm going to want here. That's not quite bright enough. Really get that edge. That's it. It really sort of hooks around there. There we go. Into my yellow. Comes out here and then sort of fades out. No, it does sort of carry on round. It gets yellower. Into that, that's good. Then it gets browner. I'll use a little bit of this orange and this yellow ochre. I can pull that back out the other side. I can. Then, oh, that's too much green. Be very careful with this. Come on. Ooh. Hey, great.
Not got much space left on your palette.
No, well, you know, you want a palette that's about the same size as the picture you're painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's rule of thumb, is it?
well, you're going to want that same amount of paint that goes on here. You know, If you've got a giant canvas and a small palette, you're not going to mix enough paint naturally. Oh, now I'm seeing that. Ow, what am I doing? What's that? Oh, it's because I wiped it on the thing and there was green in my rag.
Would you say it's better for an artist if they're starting out to start small or start large on the canvas size?
I would start small, be experimental. You know, just try stuff out, see what it does. And after a while, the paint will start to explain itself to you. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that green in there. I'm going to give it a wipe. Give it a wipe. Mm. There you go. So, talking about chroma, this is the yellowest bit of the balloon. There's a soft edge there and there. But I can kind of keep loading yellow into it. Like that. Really intensify it. And it will happily accommodate it. In fact, go even further than that. Let's see how crazy I can make this. Soften that edge. There's a bit in here. There's a bit more in there. There's especially a bit. This is still in shadow, so it's not all the way, but it's quite bright. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What else? We go a bit greener here. We can carry a bit of that dark in there, bring some of these shapes out. I think that's probably enough, isn't it? Kind of. Down into there. I can peer out to the edges of the highlight. That can be creamier and lighter. There we go. Borrow a little bit of that. Put it into here. Cheeky. And same thing. Just on the underneath of the red. Yeah, so I'm seeing some interesting things with the red now. Seeing some cooler reds. I'll highlight a little bit there. Yeah, just that thing of changing the temperature. And certainly at the top, they can get brighter. Around here. Anything else? maybe a little bit around that. And then where it's really intense, and here. So yeah, oh yeah, the thing I was going to say about chroma and tone is that the very brightest red that I'm mixing here, if I made it darker or lighter, it would become less red. It would either wash out or it would, what would you call it? Yeah, sort of become slightly gloomier. So you don't really have to worry about judging tone when you get into really bright colours, which is when it's hardest as well. You're trying to figure out just how dark or light an intense colour is really hard. So if you're trying to do a black and white picture, I have put students through this before actually, it's very unfair. You're trying to do a black and white painting of a green and a red pepper. Mm-hmm. It's just impossible because you can't figure out which one's lighter than the other because you're not getting tonal information, you're getting all this colour information and you're trying to turn it into tone information and it won't work because it's different bits of your eyes seeing it. Actually different cells, you know. So it's like pushing down on something and trying to figure out how much it weighs.
Okay, yeah.
It's just, you might get a clue, but that's not how you find that out. You know, it's a different thing. Right, I'm seeing some other stuff now. Yeah, I'm not going to fiddle with that much more. That's fine. It's funny, the highlight on different balloons looks a different colour by contrast. So here on the yellow one, the reflection of the lamp actually looks a bit more sort of pink or maroon. Right, at least make the middle bit the same. Should all agree with each other. Now that that's on, let's clean all of that. Start mucking about with some of these more sort of pinky lights over here. And maybe it is just by contrast with the complementary colour coming out. There is a name, I've forgotten it now, or if you like you get an after image if you stare at a colour. Mm-hmm. And if you stare at a really bright colour, just generally, Lawrence Belbin pointed this out to me actually, you start to see a halo around it. Mm-hmm. And that halo will be the complementary colour. So if you stare at a piece of orange, you'll get a blue halo around it.
Oh, interesting.
And it sort of reveals to you what that complementary colour is, which is interesting and useful to know if you are a painter. Sort of pinkish there, yeah. Oh, there's definitely more yellow in this. Actually, no, it's more orangey than that. Yeah, the more it mixes in, the more I can sort of approach that edge and then reload the brush and come back in the middle here where it's the most intense. Oh, that's quite fun. There you are. So these lovely sort of squeaky balloons. I just need to do the string and mix a whole load of this this greyish background colour, which this will probably do to help with. What's that doing? Does it know? Yeah, good start. Oh, big firm brush for this one. A little bit of thinners, just a tiny bit. Felt like I was mixing an awful lot of paint there, and I just wasn't. It is quite thick, sticky paint though, which is what I want here, because I want to be able to work into it with the highlights, especially around the top of this balloon there. But first things first. One thing you can do, well, this is where the spatula is quite useful as well. If I spatula that, I can actually gather up whole bits of paint and put them back down over here. Break that edge up. Yeah. But no, that's still not enough paint, so I'm going to have to go again. I'll load of that. Bit of raw umber. That violet. No. Too pink, a little bit of green. But that's not too much. Oh, there's some there, I'll use that. Make it greener, make it paler. There we go, that's doing something. Hey.
Josie's just said, great painting, I've got to go, so we'll watch later. Bye bye.
Oh, thanks for coming, Josie. See you soon. There we are. I'll go all the way to the edges on this one. So yeah, it was a fun little discovery, that one. Figuring out sort of what happens where when you're really looking at light travelling through a balloon. Actually deeply fascinating. I'm going to do this nice bright white highlight along the bottom. Use a little bit of oil for that. There you are. Paint isn't flowing, but it'll grind into the surface like that, because it's not really about texture here, it's just about this little sort of platform at the bottom. And that yellow creep in as well. Quite fun. Go back to my bright highlights. Leave that yellow on the brush. It will mix in with what's here. I'm actually going to have to scrape some of that away. Actually a bit too much around here. And I want to lighten that. There we are. There's places where that hard edge is really important, and places where it's less so. Here, especially, there's a sort of this journey into the painting that the light takes. Does need to be documented. There we are. The last bit, I guess, would be the string. Well, sort of shadow for the string up here. That's going to come in there. Darker. No, doing nothing. I don't want to rush this. That does need to be softer there. And right, I'll make that quite red on the inside of this. And there's going to be a bit in there. And then it's going to get greener on the inside of this. Is that dark enough? Not quite. Now if I go to the highlight now, that should be the last thing. It's not quite the last thing, there's still something on this edge. I just need to re-establish. No, brighter. It's really bright there. They are suitably vague. It does its job. Yeah, very, very hard to sort of go back to seeing it as a balloon. Really tricky. That does its thing. Stop. That's fine. Last thing is just the highlight on the string. I will add a bit of oil to now, because it's a sort of mark that it doesn't matter if there's a shiny bit, because it's meant to stand out and just be a line. That's doing it, because it looks suitably stringy. And then it's in the shade over here. With the green behind it. Is there a last thing? Depends where I move my head. There are a few little last things. I'm seeing more stuff now, but not all of it's important. There's this underneath of that balloon there. That really wasn't necessary, I don't think, but I wanted to put it in, and one last final little blob of light just in the gap there. Only a little negative space. How important was that? Not very. Stop. Oh, that was fun. I hope that was fun to watch as well. I don't know how there were probably quite a few reflections on that, so let's get the oh no, it's not too bad from here. Now, let's get rid of those reflections. There we go. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that.
That's cool.
I don't know if there's really a need to do a zoom in, but
Steve Edison writes, "Hello to you both. Nice balloons. Can't wait to see what it looks like when you turn it the right way up."
that should be a final thing. That works as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I guess you could put it either way around you wanted.
Just kind of a landscape.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite fun actually. I mean, it's the same, you know, if you've got helium in them, it kind of turns gravity upside down.
Find that one and flip that.
Yeah, I should have done the whole thing standing on my head. I think
So that's the picture the other way up as well.
Oh, you can flip it around. Oh, yeah. Well done. There's always
somehow that just doesn't. I think because we've been seeing it the other way around for so long, it just doesn't.
Feels a bit
compute.
Feels a bit wrong, doesn't it? Let's go back to how it was. Clang. So there's one thing to do, and that's add a signature. So we've got to pick a colour now, and it's tricky because there's no sort of, it's not really a dominant colour in there. But I have got some red left, so I think I might use that.
Red would fit quite well in the corner down there as well.
Oh! A bit of that violet just to darken it. Is that 9 o'clock?
1:45.
Wow, so I did this in an hour and a half.
Mm.
I need to calm down a bit. Goodness. How frantic of me. Well, I hope that was entertaining and fun to watch. And that's a good little bit of painting, that. It's definitely better than what was underneath.
Yeah, I like the gradient and the shadow.
Yeah.
That looks really nice.
So it's a slightly different experience working over a sort of a dried ground. The paint behaves slightly differently. It doesn't sort of grip quite the same way. But once you adjust to that, it's actually, there's a lot of bits of texture. I will do a close-up, I think. I'll just
Let me turn the thingy off. Those.
But if I keep the angle the same, it should behave itself. So. Yeah, go on then. Put it back to normal. Oh, you can do. Did you switch it off?
No, I didn't.
Oh, right. Yeah, you go to the filters. You can just. You don't have to reset it, or you can just.
Yeah, I've just hidden it.
Oh, right. Okay, that's great. So yeah, there's lots of interesting little subtle colour changes in here. A really proper thick red paint there. That. Ooh, tasty. Temperature changes quite. You can see quite a lot in the red. There's me string.
String's really impressive close up.
Yeah. And so a lot of those textures of the previous brushwork have kind of created a different kind of surface. And we come back. And you can really see those colours in the shadow as well. You really see that sort of yellow to green to blue, to red through those. So I'm quite pleased with that. Ta-da! Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, look forward to seeing you next week. We're just discussing what I could do with this whole thing, because I'm going to keep doing it just because it archives my working. Might be fun to. I think I've kind of got it down now, actually, in terms of like this approach, this way of showing people me making a painting. If you think there's other improvements I could make, I think, I mean, looking at it on the screen, it looks a bit low contrast, but I suppose it depends on your screen, doesn't it? I'm not going to have to do things like live zooms and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it does the job. But yeah, hopefully we'll get some more people in for portraits, interesting people. I should start like inviting famous people, oughtn't I? Because then people would want to tune in and listen to that. Bill Gates, have you got his number? You know those sorts of people, don't you?
Yeah. We can start with a few that we know, can we?
Yeah, I can't remember his email address. Something at AOL anyway. That's
AOL, blimey, that's a blast from the past.
I'd love it if Bill Gates had an AOL email address. I bet he does. I bet he's got an email address for every.
That's the only reson XP was kept alive, was because it's what he runs his software on at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Just no need to update. Yeah. I don't want to update. The new one's full of bugs.
Yeah.
I know. I put them there. Fun.
Okay, cool.
See you next time.
See you next week. Amazing. Thank you.